A single mom sent a flirty text meant for her friend. You could bite me, and I wouldn't resist. She hit send on the wrong number. 10 minutes later, the vampire king knocked on her door, eyes glowing in the darkness, saying he'd been waiting 2 centuries for her to call him. Clara's phone glowed in the darkness of her kitchen, the only light in the small house besides the faint hallway nightlight. She kept on for Noah. Her fingers moved across the screen, barely awake, responding to her best friend Maya's text about the new guy she'd met at the gym. "Girl, stop being boring," Maya had written. "Live a little. Send him something spicy." Clara snorted softly, careful not to wake her 6-year-old son sleeping down the hall. She typed back quickly, grinning at her own ridiculousness. "You could bite me, and I wouldn't even resist." Flushed face. She hit send and set the phone down, reaching for her cold coffee. Outside, rain hammered against the windows of their tiny rental house on Maple Street. The whole town of Millbrook seemed to be drowning tonight. Thunder rumbled somewhere in the distance, and Clara felt the exhaustion in her bones. 2 shifts at the cafe, parent-teacher conferences, a sink that wouldn't stop dripping. Her phone pinged. Clara glanced at it, expecting Maya's laughing response. Instead, her blood went cold. "Are you certain of that, Clara?" The message sat there on her screen, stark and impossible. The contact name was blank, just a string of numbers she didn't recognize. But that wasn't what made her hands start shaking. Whoever this was knew her name. Clara's mind raced. She grabbed her phone, fingers fumbling as she scrolled up to see which contact she'd actually sent that message to. Her stomach dropped. Not Maya. The number above read, "Unknown contact, added 3 minutes ago." That was impossible. She hadn't added any new contacts. She hadn't even opened her contact list tonight. Another ping. "I appreciate the invitation. I've waited a very long time." Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. This had to be a prank. Maybe Maya had given her number to some creep as a joke. But Maya wouldn't do that. And how would they know her name? She typed back with shaking hands. "Who is this? How did you get my number?" The reply came instantly. "You sent for me, though I confess your method was unconventional." Outside, the streetlight across from her house flickered once, twice, then exploded in a shower of sparks. Clara jumped, nearly dropping her phone. The entire street plunged into deeper darkness, rain now falling in sheets so thick she could barely see past her front yard. She stood frozen in her kitchen, staring at the screen, when the threats appeared showing someone typing. "I'm 10 minutes away." Clara's breath caught. "No," she whispered to the empty kitchen.
No, no, no.
She immediately blocked the number, her hands trembling so badly she almost couldn't hit the right buttons. Then she locked her phone and set it face down on the counter, backing away from it like it might bite her. This was insane. Some lunatic had somehow gotten her number and was messing with her. That was all. She'd call the police in the morning if they tried to contact her again. For now, she just needed to breathe. Clara forced herself to walk to the sink, splashing cold water on her face. The rain continued its assault on the roof. She counted her breaths, in for 4, out for 4, the way her therapist had taught her after the divorce. Then she heard it. A knock at the front door. 3 slow, deliberate strikes. Clara's entire body went rigid. She stared down the hallway toward the front of the house, toward that sound. The knock came again, patient and precise. She grabbed her phone, unlocking it to call 911. The screen lit up, and her blood turned to ice. A new message sat there, impossible, from the number she'd just blocked. "I'm here." Clara's hands shook so violently, she nearly dropped the phone. She wanted to run to Noah's room, grab him, lock the door. But something, some terrible instinct, told her that locks wouldn't matter to whoever was standing on her porch. The knock came a 3rd time. "Go away," Clara called out, her voice cracking. "I'm calling the police." Silence. Just the rain and her ragged breathing. Then, from the other side of the door, a voice. Low, calm, and somehow ancient. "Clara Morrison, I mean you no harm. But we must speak. You've broken a seal that stood for 200 years. Her maiden name. He'd used her maiden name. She hadn't gone by Morrison since she was 18, since she'd married Derek and become Clara Hughes. Even after the divorce, she'd kept Hughes for Noah's sake. Nobody called her Morrison anymore. Nobody alive, anyway. Who are you? She demanded, moving slowly toward the door despite every instinct screaming at her to run. My name is Lucien Vale. And you, Clara, just summoned me from a very long sleep. Clara's hand hovered over the doorknob. Every rational part of her brain told her not to open it. But that voice, there was something in it that didn't sound threatening. It sounded tired, resigned, almost.
Sat.
She turned on the porch light and looked through the peephole. A man stood in the rain, tall and impossibly still. Water streamed down his face, plastering dark hair to his forehead, but he didn't blink, didn't shiver. His skin was pale, not just pale, but porcelain, like he'd never seen the sun. And his eyes. Even through the distortion of the peephole, Clara could see his eyes were wrong. Too bright. Too knowing. Like they'd seen centuries pass. Please, he said softly. Just open the door. 5 minutes of your time. Then I'll leave if you wish. Clara's hand moved before her brain could stop it. She unlocked the deadbolt, then the chain, then pulled the door open just a crack. The man, Lucien, didn't move. He stood at the edge of her porch, rain soaking through his expensive-looking black coat.
Thank you, he said.
Then every light in her house exploded. Glass rained down from the overhead fixture. Sparks flew from the porch light. Clara screamed and stumbled backward as Lucien stepped forward, then stopped himself, his hands clenching into fists. Forgive me, he said through what sounded like gritted teeth. It's been a long time since I've been awake. My control is not what it was. In the darkness, his eyes seemed to glow faintly, like embers. Clara's scream died in her throat. She stood frozen in her doorway, staring at this impossible man, while rain and broken glass glittered around them both. What are you? She whispered. Lucien's smile was sad and sharp all at once. I think you already know. Clara's hand found the doorframe, gripping it hard enough that her knuckles went white. In the darkness, with only the distant lightning illuminating his face in brief flashes, Lucien Vale looked less like a man and more like a painting come to life, beautiful and utterly wrong. You need to leave, Clara said, her voice steadier than she felt. Right now. I will, Lucien replied, still standing at the threshold, rain streaming off him. But first, you need to understand what you've done. I didn't do anything except send a stupid text to the wrong number. That text was written in your hand, sent from your phone, using your blood signature. His eyes, God, those eyes, fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel transparent. It wasn't wrong. It was a summons. One that only someone from the Morrison bloodline could trigger. Clara's mouth went dry. You're insane. Am I? Lucien tilted his head slightly. Then explain the lights. Explain how I knew your maiden name. Explain how I received a message on a phone that hasn't existed for a century. He pulled something from his coat pocket. Clara's breath caught. It was old, impossibly old, a metal device that looked like a phone but couldn't be. The casing was tarnished silver, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. This was sealed with me, Lucien said quietly. Bound to one purpose, to receive word from the Morrison line should they ever have need of me. It hasn't made a sound since 1824. Until tonight. Thunder cracked overhead, close enough that Clara felt it in her chest. She should slam the door. She should run to Noah's room, grab him, climb out a window. But her feet wouldn't move. My family has nothing to do with you, she said. Your family has everything to do with me. Lucien took one step closer, and Clara noticed he moved wrong. Too fluid, like water instead of muscle and bone. Your great-great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth Morrison, saved my life when I was being hunted. In return, I swore a blood pact to protect her line. Every daughter, every generation. That's a fairy tale. Is it? His voice dropped lower. Then tell me, Clara, why do you dream of a woman in red standing in a forest? Why does your son wake screaming about shadows that have no source? Clara's heart stopped. She'd never told anyone about those dreams. Not Maya, not her therapist, not even Derek back when they were still married. And Noah had been having nightmares for weeks, always about the same thing. A darkness that watched him. How do you know that? She whispered. Because I am the shadow, Lucian said simply. Dormant, but never gone. Sleeping, but always watching. The pact bound me to your bloodline, Clara. I feel when you're afraid. I hear when your son cries. I've been part of your family for 200 years, whether you knew it or not. You're saying you're a... Clara couldn't make herself say the word. Vampire. Lucian said it without drama, like he was telling her he was a lawyer or a teacher.
Yes.
Though not the kind from your books and movies. I don't hunt. I don't kill. I haven't fed on a human in nearly 2 centuries, not since Elizabeth Morrison made me swear to never take a life again. Clara's mind reeled. This couldn't be real. Vampires weren't real. But the lights, the way he moved, those eyes. I want you to leave, she said, her voice cracking. I understand. Lucian stepped back, and Clara saw something flash across his face. Pain, maybe. Or loneliness. But I need you to hear this first. By sending that message, even accidentally, you've announced your presence to others of my kind. The seal that kept you hidden, kept all the Morrison women hidden, is broken. Others? Clara's voice came out as barely a whisper. Vampire hunters. Rogue vampires who remember the old feuds. Things that have been searching for Elizabeth's bloodline for centuries. Lucian's hands clenched again, and Clara saw his fingernails had grown into something sharp. You and your son are in danger now. Whether you believe me or not doesn't change that. Get away from my son. Clara moved to slam the door, but Lucian raised one hand.
Wait.
Please, for the first time, his perfect composure cracked. I can smell it on you. Elizabeth's blood. But there's something else. Something I don't understand. He leaned forward slightly, and Clara pressed herself against the doorframe. She watched his nostrils flare, watched his eyes darken from that ember glow to something closer to black. You carry her scent, he said slowly, and her blood. But you also carry something older. Something that shouldn't exist. What are you talking about? Lucian's gaze dropped to her chest, to her heart, and his expression shifted into something Clara couldn't read. Fear?
Awe.
You're not just her descendant, he breathed. Part of her soul is inside you. She's been reincarnating through the women in your family, piece by piece, waiting for her. He stopped abruptly, his head snapping to the side like he'd heard something. In the distance, Clara heard it too, a car engine getting closer. I have to go, Lucian said quickly. Keep your son close. Don't invite anyone into your home. And Clara, he looked at her one last time, and she saw genuine fear in those ancient eyes. Whatever you do, don't cut yourself. Not even a paper cut. They'll smell it for miles. Then he was gone. Not walking away, just gone, like he'd never been there at all. Clara stood in her doorway, shaking, staring at the empty porch. The rain had stopped. The street was silent. And on her doorstep, where Lucian Vale had stood, the wood was scorched black in the perfect shape of 2 footprints. Clara didn't sleep. She couldn't. She spent the entire night sitting in Noah's doorway, watching her son breathe in the glow of his superhero nightlight, jumping at every creak of the old house settling. When dawn finally broke through the curtains, pale and gray, Clara almost wept with relief. She'd convinced herself it was a nightmare. Some kind of stress-induced hallucination brought on by exhaustion and too much coffee. Vampires weren't real. Men didn't disappear into thin air. And her phone certainly hadn't summoned some ancient creature from a 200-year sleep. Then she walked past her front door and saw the scorch marks. 2 perfect black footprints burned into the wooden porch. Clara crouched down, touching one with trembling fingers. The wood was ice-cold despite the morning sun, and when she pulled her hand back, her fingertips were smudged with something that looked like ash but smelled like copper. Like blood. Mommy? Noah's voice made her jump. He stood in the hallway in his dinosaur pajamas, rubbing his eyes. Why are the lights broken? Clara looked up at the shattered fixtures, glass still scattered across the floor. She'd been so focused on the footprints she'd forgotten about the exploded bulbs. Just an electrical problem, baby, she said, forcing a smile. Go get dressed for school. I'll make pancakes. She didn't make pancakes. She made toast because her hands shook too much to flip anything. Noah didn't seem to notice, chattering about a field trip to the science museum while Clara stared at her phone. The message thread was still there. Every impossible word. You could bite me and I wouldn't even resist flushed face. Are you certain of that, Clara? I'm here. But when she tried to scroll up further, the messages simply ended. No contact name. No way to call back. And at the bottom of her screen, burned into the display like a watermark, were 3 words that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. Message delivered. Blood seal broken. Clara dropped Noah off at school and drove straight to the cafe, desperate for normalcy. The copper cup was always the same, warm lighting, the smell of coffee and cinnamon, the comfortable chaos of the morning rush. She tied on her apron and tried to lose herself in making lattes and ringing up orders. You look terrible, Maya said, appearing beside her with a tray of dirty mugs. Did you sleep at all? Not really, Clara admitted. Was it another Noah nightmare? Clara opened her mouth to tell her everything. The text, the vampire, the scorched footprints, but the words died in her throat. Maya would think she'd lost her mind. Hell, Clara thought she'd lost her mind. Something like that, she said instead. Well, you're pale as a ghost. Maybe take your break early. Maya squeezed her shoulder and headed back to the floor. Clara was pulling a double shot of espresso when she felt it, that crawling sensation of being watched. She turned slowly, scanning the cafe. He sat in the corner booth, the one that nobody ever wanted because the vinyl was cracked and the table wobbled. Lucian Vale, wearing different clothes, a dark gray sweater that probably cost more than Clara's rent, but unmistakably him. That pale skin. Those 2 bright eyes fixed directly on her. There was a cup of black coffee in front of him, steam still rising from it. Clara's hands went numb. The espresso cup slipped from her grip and shattered on the floor, making half the cafe turn to look. She barely noticed. She was already moving, ripping off her apron, and walking straight toward his table. What are you doing here? She hissed, sliding into the booth across from him. Having coffee, Lucian said calmly. Though I confess, I can't actually drink it. It's more for appearances. You need to leave.
Now.
I can't, he glanced down at his untouched coffee. I told you last night. The seal is broken. Until I can determine who knows about you, I need to stay close. Clara's voice dropped to a furious whisper. You can't just follow me around. People will ask questions. My boss. We'll see. A concerned friend checking in, Lucian interrupted. I'm very good at blending in, Clara. I've had centuries of practice. This is insane. Clara pressed her palms against the table, feeling the wobble Maya always complained about. You show up at my house in the middle of the night, tell me I'm in danger from vampires and vampire hunters, and now you're just having coffee? Like this is normal? Nothing about this is normal, Lucian agreed. His eyes softened slightly. But I swore to protect your bloodline. You summoned me, whether you meant to or not. I can't leave you vulnerable. I didn't summon anything. It was a stupid mistake. Mistakes don't break 200-year-old blood seals. Lucian leaned forward, and Clara caught a whiff of something that didn't smell like cologne or aftershave. It smelled like night air and old books and something metallic she didn't want to identify. That text contained your intent, your desire, written in your own words. Blood magic doesn't care about accidents. It cares about will. Clara's mind flashed back to the moment she'd sent that text. She'd been thinking about Maya's new boyfriend, yes, but also, God, she'd been so tired, so lonely. For just a second, typing those words, hadn't she wished someone would actually show up? Someone who wanted her. No, she said aloud. Clara.
No.
This isn't happening. You're going to finish your coffee that you can't actually drink, and then you're going to leave. And if I see you again, I'm calling the police. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Hurt, maybe. Or resignation. As you wish, he said quietly. But before I go, I need you to understand something. I swore to protect your bloodline. You summoned me. Whether you believe me or not doesn't change what's coming. He stood, buttoning his coat, and Clara noticed for the first time that he cast no reflection in the window behind him. Her stomach dropped. They're already searching for you, Lucien said. I can feel them. 2, maybe 3 days before they find this town. Keep your son close. And Clara, he looked down at her one last time. When the nightmares get worse, when Noah starts seeing things in the daylight, you know where to find me. I don't know where you are. Lucien's smile was sad. Yes, you do. You've always known. Then he walked out of the cafe, and when Clara looked down at his table, the coffee cup was full of ice despite the steam she'd seen rising from it minutes ago. And underneath it, burned into the wood of the table, was a single word.
Protect.
Clara told herself she wouldn't look into it. She told herself all through her shift, through picking up Noah from school, through making dinner, and helping with homework. But after Noah went to bed, she found herself sitting at her laptop, the cursor blinking in the search bar. She typed, Lucien Vale, 1800s. The results were sparse. A genealogy website mentioned a Lucien Vale who'd owned property in Massachusetts in 1823. A historical society archive referenced a nobleman accused of witchcraft in 1824. And then, Clara's breath caught. A digitized newspaper article from the Boston Herald, dated March 15, 1824. Mysterious disappearance of merchant's daughter. Miss Elizabeth Morrison, aged 19, daughter of prominent merchant Thomas Morrison, has vanished without trace. Witnesses last saw her entering the woods near the Vale estate on the evening of March 12th. Lord Lucien Vale, the estate's owner, has also disappeared. Authorities suspect foul play. Clara's hands trembled as she clicked through more results. Elizabeth Morrison, her great-great-great-grandmother. The woman Lucien claimed had saved his life. She found a family tree on a genealogy site and traced it forward. Elizabeth Morrison had a daughter in 1825, though no father was listed. That daughter had a daughter. And on, each generation producing at least one girl, until the line reached Clara's mother, Catherine, and then Clara herself. Every single woman had died young. None had made it past 40. Clara slammed the laptop shut, her heart racing. This proved nothing. Coincidence. Bad genetics. She was letting Lucien's story get into her head. But then her phone buzzed. No caller ID. No name. Just that same string of numbers from the night before. Did you find what you were looking for? Clara stared at the message, then typed back with shaking fingers. How did you know I was searching? I told you. I'm bound to your bloodline. I feel what you feel. Right now you're afraid. And curious. The curiosity will get you killed. Leave me alone. I wish I could. Clara turned off her phone and threw it across the couch. She needed sleep. Tomorrow in the daylight, this would all make sense. It had to. She was halfway to her bedroom when she heard it. Mommy. Noah's scream shattered the silence. Clara ran, her feet barely touching the floor, bursting into his room to find him sitting up in bed, pointing at the window with wide, terrified eyes. He's there. The man with red eyes. He's in the garden. Clara's blood turned to ice. She looked at the window, but saw only darkness and the reflection of Noah's nightlight. Baby, there's no one. He's there. He's watching me. Clara pulled Noah into her arms, feeling his small body shake. It's okay. It's just a dream. You're safe. But even as she said it, she felt that same crawling sensation from the cafe. Being watched. She carried Noah to her bed, tucking him in beside her and checking every lock in the house twice. The doors were secure. The windows latched. Everything was fine. She almost believed it until she went to the kitchen for water and saw her back door. It was standing open. Clara's heart stopped. She knew. She'd locked that door. She always locked it. Always. She crept forward, her phone clutched in one hand, ready to call 911. The door swung gently in the night breeze, and Clara was about to slam it shut when she saw what lay on the porch. A single red rose. It sat in the center of the welcome mat, perfect and dark in the moonlight. Clara bent down slowly, reaching for it, then jerked her hand back. The rose was wet, not with dew or rain. With blood. Fresh blood dripped from the petals, pooling on the concrete. Clara stumbled backward, a scream building in her throat, when she saw the note tucked beneath the stem. With trembling hands, she picked it up. The paper was old, yellowed, and the handwriting was elegant and precise. They know where you are. Tomorrow night they'll come. I'll be watching. Clara crumpled the note in her fist and slammed the door, locking it and shoving a chair beneath the handle for good measure. Her entire body shook as she grabbed her phone and turned it back on. She found the message thread with that unknown number and typed, "What do you mean they're coming? Who?" The response came immediately. The Covenant. Vampire hunters who've been searching for Elizabeth's line since 1824. They believe your blood can destroy my kind. They'll torture you to learn how. This is insane. Check your son's window. The garden sighed. Clara ran back to her bedroom where Noah was finally sleeping, worn out from fear. She crept to the window and looked down into her small backyard. There, pressed into the mud beneath Noah's window, were footprints. Human-shaped but wrong. Too large. Too deep. And leading from the fence to the house, stopping directly below where her son slept. Clara backed away from the window, her breath coming in short gasps. She looked at Noah, so small and vulnerable in her bed, and felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, cold and sharp, but beneath it was something else. Fury. She grabbed her phone and typed, "What do I do?" Lucien's response was instant. "Let me protect you. It's what I was made for." Clara looked at her sleeping son, at the bloody rose on her porch, at the footprints in her garden. She thought about every single Morrison woman dying young, about Elizabeth disappearing into those woods in 1824. She typed 4 words she never thought she'd write. "Tell me how." The forest at the edge of Millbrook looked different at twilight. The trees seemed taller, darker, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers against the purple sky. Clara held Noah's hand tighter as they walked the path Lucien had described in his text, past the old mill, through the birch grove, to the clearing where 3 oaks meet. "Where are we going?" Noah asked for the 3rd time, his voice small. "To meet a friend," Clara said, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "Is it the man from my window?" Clara's grip tightened. "Did you see his face?" Noah shook his head. Just his eyes. They were red like stoplights, but not scary red.
Sadred.
They emerged into the clearing, and Clara stopped. 3 massive oak trees stood in a triangle, their trunks wider than her car. And sitting on a fallen log between them, looking like he'd been carved from the same ancient wood, was Lucien. He stood when he saw them, and Clara noticed he moved more carefully now, more human. He was trying not to frighten Noah. "Thank you for coming," Lucien said quietly. Noah pressed against Clara's side. "Are you the sad-eye man?" Something flickered across Lucien's face. Surprise, perhaps, or pain. "I suppose I am. My name is Lucien. You must be Noah." "How do you know my name?" "I've known your family for a very long time." Lucien crouched down to Noah's level, and Clara saw him deliberately stay several feet away. "Your mother asked me to help keep you safe. Would that be all right?" Noah looked up at Clara, confused. She nodded, and Noah turned back to Lucien. "Safe from what?" "From people who want to hurt you because of who your family is," Lucien said simply. Bad people who don't understand that you're special. I'm not special. I'm just a kid. You're more than that. Lucien's eyes met Clara's over Noah's head. Much more. Clara felt that weight again, that sense of something bigger than her small life closing in. You said you'd explain everything. The truth this time. Lucien stood and gestured to the log. Please sit. Clara hesitated, then sat with Noah in her lap. Lucien remained standing, hands clasped behind his back like he was giving a lecture. Or a confession. In 1823, I was dying, he began. Not from age. I'd stopped aging centuries before, but from a blood curse placed on me by a vampire hunter. The curse was burning me from the inside, turning my own blood to poison. I had weeks, maybe days. What's a blood curse? Noah whispered. Magic written in blood, Lucien said. The most powerful kind. And the most painful. He paused, lost in memory. I collapsed in the woods near Boston. I expected to die there. Instead, your ancestor found me. Elizabeth Morrison, Clara said.
Yes.
She was 19, brilliant, and studying healing herbs against her father's wishes. She found me, saw what I was, what I am, and didn't run. She dragged me to a cave and spent 3 days finding the counter curse. Lucien's voice softened. She saved my life. When I asked what she wanted as payment, she said she wanted nothing. But I insisted. So she made me swear a blood pact. What's that? Noah asked. A promise written in blood that can never be broken, Lucien explained. Elizabeth asked me to protect her daughters and their daughters and all the daughters who came after. To watch over the Morrison bloodline until the last of her line passed from this earth. He looked directly at Clara. That means you. And Noah. But Noah's a boy, Clara said. Who carries Morrison blood through you? Lucien's expression grew grave. And something else. Something I didn't understand until I saw him. Noah carries a fragment of my essence. Dormant vampire energy passed through the bloodline. Clara's arms tightened around her son. What does that mean? It means the Covenant can sense him the way they sense me. They've been hunting my kind for centuries, and your son burns like a beacon to them. Lucien took a step closer. That's why they're coming. Not just for you, but for him. Can you stop it? Clara's voice cracked. Can you take it out of him?
No.
It's woven into his blood, just as the pact is woven into yours. But I can protect him. I can teach him to control it as he grows. Lucien knelt again, this time looking directly at Noah. You're not in danger from what you carry. You're in danger from people who fear it. Noah's small hand found Clara's. Will you really protect us? With everything I am, Lucien said. I swore it 200 years ago, and that oath still stands. Clara felt tears burning in her eyes. Why didn't you come sooner? My mother died when I was Noah's age. She was only 34. If you've been watching all along. I was dormant, Lucien said, and Clara heard genuine anguish in his voice. The pact kept me sleeping unless summoned. Elizabeth designed it that way. She didn't want me interfering in her descendants' lives unless they truly needed me. Your text broke the seal. It woke me. A stupid text message. A blood call written with desire and need. Lucien stood. Magic doesn't care about technology, Clara. It cares about intent. You needed protection. You called out. I answered. The forest around them had grown darker, the shadows lengthening. Clara looked at this impossible man, this vampire who'd been bound to her family for 2 centuries, and made a decision. What do we do now? Lucien's eyes glowed faintly in the gathering darkness.
Now?
You let me do what I was made for. Stay close to me for the next few days. Don't go anywhere alone. And whatever happens, his voice turned hard, trust that I will not let them take you or your son. How close? Clara asked. Lucien pulled a key from his pocket and held it out. There's an old cabin half a mile north. It belonged to Elizabeth once. I've kept it maintained. Stay there tonight. Tomorrow, I'll make arrangements to keep you both safe. Clara took the key, their fingers brushing for just a moment. His skin was ice cold. One more thing, Lucien said as they stood to leave. If they come before I reach you, remember, they can't enter your home without invitation. Don't let anyone in. Not the police, not a neighbor, not someone claiming to need help. No 1 inch. How will we know it's really you? Noah asked. Lucien smiled, and for the first time, Clara saw his fangs, sharp and white in the twilight. You'll know. The cabin was exactly as Lucien had described, small, clean, and hidden so deep in the woods that Clara's phone had no signal. She'd called Maya from the car, lying about a last-minute trip to visit her aunt. The guilt sat heavy in her stomach, but not as heavy as the fear. Noah fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day's strangeness. Clara sat by the window, watching the darkness between the trees, jumping at every sound. Lucien had said he'd be nearby, watching, but she saw no sign of him. Around midnight, she finally dozed off in the chair. The knock woke her at dawn. Clara's eyes snapped open, her heart immediately racing. Pale morning light filtered through the curtains. The knock came again, polite, professional, 3 measured taps. Ms. Hughes? Are you in there? A man's voice. Not Lucien's. Clara crept to the window and peered through the curtain. A utility worker stood on the small porch, wearing a bright yellow vest and carrying a clipboard. Middle-aged, slightly overweight, with a friendly smile visible through the window. Completely ordinary. Ms. Hughes? I'm from Valley Gas and Electric. We've had reports of a gas leak in this area. I need to check your lines. Clara's mouth was dry. Don't let anyone in. No one. I don't smell any gas, she called through the door. Ma'am, that's the danger. Some leaks are odorless. It'll only take a minute. I just need to check your basement. This cabin doesn't have a basement. The man paused. Through the window, Clara saw his smile falter for just a fraction of a second. Right, of course. I meant the utility panel. Should be around back. Then check it from outside. Ma'am, I really need you to. Check it from outside. Clara's voice was sharper now. She backed away from the door, her instinct screaming. The man's smile disappeared completely. Miss Hughes, I'm going to need you to open this door.
No.
Silence. Clara held her breath, pressing herself against the wall. Through the window, she watched the man's hand move to his vest pocket. When it emerged, he wasn't holding a gas detector. He was holding a knife. Long, silver, covered in symbols that seemed to writhe in the morning light. All right then, the man said, his voice completely different now, cold and mechanical. We'll do this the hard way. He raised the knife toward the door, beginning to chant in a language Clara didn't recognize. The air around the blade shimmered, and the cabin's door handle started to glow red-hot. Clara ran to Noah's room. Baby, wake up. We need to. The window exploded inward. Lucien crashed through in a shower of glass, moving so fast he was barely a blur. The fake utility worker spun, bringing the knife up, but Lucien was already on him. They collided with inhuman force, tumbling off the porch and into the yard. Stay inside, Lucien roared. Don't cross the threshold. Clara grabbed Noah, who was screaming, and pulled him away from the broken window. Through the jagged opening, she watched the fight unfold with horrified fascination. The hunter was fast, faster than any human should be, but Lucien was something else entirely. He moved like water, like shadow, flowing around the knife strikes that should have gutted him. His eyes blazed red now, no longer trying to hide what he was. You broke the seal, bloodsucker, the hunter snarled, slashing wildly. The Covenant has been waiting 2 centuries for this. Then the Covenant should have sent someone better. Lucien caught the man's wrist, twisted, and the knife went flying. Before the hunter could react, Lucien's hand closed around his throat. Clara saw Lucien's mouth open, saw fangs extend, longer than they'd been before, gleaming like knives. Saw him sink those fangs into the hunter's neck with savage precision. The hunter's scream cut off abruptly. His body convulsed once, twice, then went still. Lucien dropped the corpse and stood there, chest heaving despite not needing to breathe, blood staining his mouth. For a moment, he looked like every nightmare story about vampires, a monster covered in gore, eyes burning with inhuman hunger. Then he looked at the cabin window and saw Clara and Noah staring at him. The red faded from his eyes. His fangs retracted. He wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand, suddenly looking more ashamed than terrifying. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said quietly. Clara's legs felt weak. She sank to the floor, pulling Noah close. "Is he dead?" "Yes," Lucien looked down at the body. "I had no choice. He would have used blood magic to break through your door. He would have killed you both. You drank from him. I neutralized his magic." That's all. Lucien's voice was careful, controlled. "I told you, I haven't killed a human in 2 centuries. He wasn't human. Not anymore. The Covenant transforms their hunters. Makes them faster, stronger. Harder to kill." Noah was shaking in Clara's arms, but not crying. He stared at Lucien through the broken window with wide, unblinking eyes. "Your eyes were red." "Yes. Like mine in the mirror sometimes." Clara's blood ran cold. "What?" "In the bathroom mirror," Noah said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes my eyes look red. Like his." Lucien's expression shifted into something Clara couldn't read. He crouched down in the yard, looking directly at Noah. "How long has that been happening?" "Since my birthday. Since I turned 6". "He's awakening early," Lucien said to Clara, his voice tight. "The essence should have stayed dormant until puberty, but the seal breaking must have triggered it." "What does that mean?" Clara demanded. Lucien stood, scanning the woods with those 2 sharp eyes. "It means they'll send more hunters. It means your son is radiating power he can't control. And it means—" He turned back to them, and Clara saw genuine fear on his ancient face. "It means we need to leave.
Now."
This location is compromised. Where can we go?" "Somewhere I should have taken you from the beginning." Lucien approached the cabin, carefully staying outside the threshold. "There's an old church 30 miles north. Abandoned, but still consecrated ground. Hunters can't use blood magic there, and I can reinforce the wards." Clara looked at the body in her yard, at the blood in the grass, at this vampire who just killed to protect them. Every instinct told her to run, but run where? The hunter had found them in a hidden cabin in the woods. How long before more came? "Help me clean this up," she heard herself say. Lucien's eyebrows rose. "Clara, you can't just leave a body in the yard. Someone will find it." She stood, her legs steadier now. "Tell me what to do." Something like respect flickered in Lucien's eyes. "There's a tarp in the shed. And lime. Elizabeth always kept supplies." As Clara helped dispose of the hunter's body, wrapping it, dragging it to Lucien's car hidden deeper in the woods, she kept glancing at her son. Noah watched it all with those 2 knowing eyes, and Clara realized with cold certainty that her little boy's childhood had just ended. "Why?" she asked Lucien as they worked. "Why does my blood matter so much? What did Elizabeth do?" Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Your blood can end me. Or set me free. Elizabeth discovered that before she died. The Covenant has been searching for proof ever since." "I don't understand." "You will." Lucien closed the trunk. "But first we survive. Questions later." Clara nodded and gathered Noah into her arms. As they climbed into her car to follow Lucien north, she looked in the rearview mirror at the cabin, at the broken window, the disturbed earth where a body had been. She'd crossed a line today. There was no going back to her small, simple life. The only way out was through. The church was older than Millbrook itself, a stone structure that looked like it had grown from the earth rather than been built upon it. Stained glass windows, cracked and faded, depicted saints Clara didn't recognize. The heavy wooden doors groaned as Lucien pushed them open. "No one's been here in decades," he said, ushering them inside. "But the consecration holds. You'll be safe here." The interior smelled of dust and old incense. Moonlight streamed through the broken windows, creating pools of colored light on the stone floor. Noah immediately ran to explore, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. "Not too far, baby," Clara called, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. She was exhausted, bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that came from fear sustained too long. "Rest," Lucian said, gesturing to the old pews. "I'll ward the entrances." Clara watched him move through the church, touching doorframes and windows, whispering words in that same strange language the hunter had used. Where his fingers traced, faint glowing symbols appeared, then faded into the stone. "What are you saying?" she asked. "Old protections. Blood wards keyed to the Morrison line. No one can enter unless you permit it." He finished the last window and turned to her. "You should sleep. Tomorrow night is the full moon." "Why does that matter?" Lucian's expression darkened. "Because vampire magic is strongest under the full moon, and so is the magic in your blood." Claire was too tired to ask what that meant. She found a corner with intact cushions lay down and was asleep almost instantly. The dreams came immediately. She was standing in a forest, but not the one outside. This forest was older, wilder, untouched by humanity. She wore a crimson gown that pooled at her feet, heavy with embroidery. Her hands, not quite her hands, lifted to touch her face. "You're awake," a voice said behind her. Clara turned and saw Lucian, but different. Younger-looking, dressed in clothing from another century, his hair longer. He knelt before her, head bowed. "Elizabeth," Clara heard herself say, but it wasn't her voice. It was older, stronger, with an accent she didn't recognize. "You swore the oath." "I did." Lucian looked up, and his eyes were filled with something Clara couldn't name. "Devotion? Love? I will guard your line until my final breath." "You have no breath, vampire." Elizabeth's laugh came through Clara's throat. "But I accept your oath. Protect my daughters. All of them. Even the ones centuries from now who won't believe in you." The scene shifted. Now Elizabeth, stood in a cave, blood dripping from her palm into a silver cup. Lucian drank from it, his eyes closing as the blood touched his lips. "This binds us," Elizabeth said. "Your immortality to my mortality. Your darkness to my light. Should my line ever truly need you, they need only call, and you will come." "I will come," Lucian repeated. "Always." Then Elizabeth reached up and touched his face, and Clara felt the gesture through time, the warmth of caring for someone who should terrify you but doesn't. "I'm sorry for what I'm about to do to you." "What do you mean?" "The sleep," Elizabeth whispered. "You can't walk the world freely. The hunters would find you, use you to find my daughters. So I'm putting you to sleep, Lucian. A death that isn't death. You'll wake only when summoned." "Elizabeth, no. It's already done. The sleeping curse is in the blood you just drank." Tears streamed down Elizabeth's face as Lucian's eyes began to close. "Forgive me, but this is the only way to keep you and them safe." Clara woke gasping, her heart racing. She was back in the church, moonlight painting everything silver. Noah slept peacefully beside her, but across the chapel, Lucian sat on the altar steps, watching her. "You saw her," he said. "It wasn't a question." "I was her." Clara's voice shook. "I felt what she felt. I said things I didn't know. What's happening to me?" Lucian stood slowly. "I told you before. Part of Elizabeth's soul has been reincarnating through the Morrison women. Each generation carries a fragment. But you," he walked closer, his footsteps silent on stone. "You carry more than the others. Perhaps all of her. The seal breaking must have awakened her memories inside you." "That's impossible. You've seen me kill a man and drink his blood, Clara." "Nothing is impossible anymore." Lucian crouched before her. "What did you see?" Clara told him about the forest, the cave, the sleeping curse. As she spoke, she watched Lucian's expression shift. Pain, recognition, grief. "She apologized," he said softly when Clara finished. "I remember. I was so angry at her for that. Angry for decades while I slept in darkness. But she was right. The hunters would have found me, tortured your family's location for me. The sleep protected you all. Until I sent a stupid text. Until you needed protection badly enough that your blood called out across 2 centuries. Lucien reached toward her face, then stopped himself. You're not just Elizabeth's descendant, Clara. You're her reborn. And that changes everything. Changes what? The pact. Your blood. Lucien's eyes met hers. Elizabeth's blood could control me, command me, heal me, or destroy me. If you truly carry her soul, then your blood has that same power. That's why the Covenant wants you. With your blood, they could enslave every vampire in existence. Or kill us all. Clara felt sick. I don't want that power. Neither did Elizabeth. But she had it anyway. And she used it to bind me to your protection. Lucien stood. The full moon rises in 6 hours. The hunters will come in force. I need to. He stopped abruptly, his head snapping toward the door. His eyes began to glow red. What is it? Clara whispered. They're here. Lucien's voice was barely human. At least a dozen. Maybe more. They've surrounded the church. Clara grabbed Noah, shaking him awake. Baby, we need to move. I can't leave, Lucien said, his hands clenching into fists. If I step outside, they'll overpower me with numbers. But inside the wards, they can't enter, Clara finished. We're trapped. You're safe, Lucien corrected. I'll hold them off until dawn. Sunlight will drive them back. What about you? Can you survive until dawn? Lucien's smile was grim.
Eve survive the virus.
A voice called from outside, amplified somehow, filling the church.
Lucien Vale.
We know you're in there. Send out the Morrison woman and the boy, and we'll let you go free. Liars, Lucien muttered. We don't want bloodshed, the voice continued. But we will burn that church down with all of you inside if we must. Clara looked at Noah's terrified face, at Lucien's rigid stance, at the ancient stones around them. They were trapped in a church surrounded by hunters, with only a few hours until dawn. And suddenly, Clara felt something else. Something warm spreading through her chest, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Elizabeth's memories stirred, showing her the cave again, the blood ritual, the words that had bound vampire to human. Clara grabbed Lucien's wrist.
The pact.
How does it work exactly? Your blood and mine are connected.
Why?
Can I use it? Can I use my blood to help you fight? Lucien's eyes widened.
Clara, no.
Blood magic is dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, then teach me. Clara's voice was steady despite the terror coursing through her. You said your mind to command. So, I'm commanding you. Show me how to fight back. Outside, something heavy slammed against the church doors. The wards flared bright blue, holding, but Clara could see cracks forming in the ancient wood. Lucien looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled a knife from his boot and handed it to her. If we do this, he said quietly, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me in ways even Elizabeth wasn't. Our blood, our lives, our fates, intertwined forever. Clara looked at her son, then at the doors beginning to splinter. She took the knife. Show me. The door shattered inward just as Clara drew the knife across her palm. Blood welled up, dark and bright in the moonlight streaming through the stained glass. Lucien caught her wrist, his eyes blazing as he pressed his own bleeding palm against hers. Repeat after me, he said urgently as hunters poured through the broken doorway. By blood given, by oath sworn. By blood given, by oath sworn. Clara's voice rang through the church. I bind this pact anew. I bind this pact anew. Their mixed blood began to glow, golden light spreading up both their arms. The hunters stopped in their tracks, shielding their eyes from the sudden brilliance. What is she doing? One shouted. Stop them, another screamed. But it was too late. The light exploded outward, and Clara felt something snap into place inside her chest, a connection that had always been there but dormant, now burning bright as the sun. She could feel Lucien's heartbeat, cold and slow. Could feel his hunger, his fear for her safety, his centuries of loneliness. And she could feel his power. "Now," Lucian whispered, his voice strained. "Command me." Clara looked at the hunters advancing, at Noah huddled behind the altar, at this vampire who'd kept watch over her family for 200 years. She felt Elizabeth's memories surge, not controlling her, but guiding her, showing her the words. "Lucian Vale," she said, her voice resonating with power that wasn't quite her own. "I release you from restraint. Protect us." Lucian's eyes went pure gold, not red, not the ember glow, but blazing gold like sunlight itself.
He moved.
The hunters didn't stand a chance. He was everywhere at once, a golden blur that struck with surgical precision. But he wasn't killing them. Clara realized with shock that he was disarming them, breaking bones, rendering them unconscious, but leaving them alive. "Stop." The lead hunter raised a silver blade covered in symbols. "I am sanctioned by the Covenant. I have the authority to—" Lucian's hand closed around the blade, and it shattered. "The Covenant has no authority here. Not anymore." He lifted the man by his throat, holding him suspended. "The Morrison line is under my protection. Any who threaten them will answer to me. Spread the word." Then he threw the hunter through the broken doorway, and the man landed in a heap outside. The others scrambled to follow, dragging their unconscious companions, their bravado shattered. But one remained, a woman in dark robes, standing by the altar where Noah hid. She had a knife pressed to her own throat, blood already trickling down her neck. "One more step, and I complete the death curse," she hissed. "My blood will poison the Morrison line forever. The boy will die screaming." Lucian froze. Clara felt his rage through their connection, felt him calculating odds, knowing he couldn't reach the woman before she could finish the spell. "Wait," Clara said, stepping forward. "You want my blood, right? You want to know what makes it special?" "Clara, no," Lucian started. "I'll tell you," Clara continued, ignoring him. "I'll tell you everything. Just leave my son alone." The woman's eyes gleamed. "Swear it." "I swear." Clara walked slowly toward her, each step measured. "But you have to understand something first." "What?" "My blood doesn't just control vampires." Clara stopped an arm's length away. "It remembers. Every generation, every life, every death. Elizabeth Morrison died protecting this secret. My mother died carrying it. And now." Clara lunged forward, not for the knife, but for the woman's wrist. Their skin connected, and Clara felt Elizabeth's power surge through her, memories, magic, 2 centuries of accumulated strength flowing like electricity. The woman screamed. The knife clattered to the floor. She fell to her knees, clutching her head. What are you?" "I'm showing you," Clara said, her voice layered with echoes of all the Morrison women who'd come before. "Showing you what happens to those who threaten this bloodline." Images flooded the woman's mind. Clara could feel them transferring, see the woman's eyes go wide with horror. Elizabeth's death. The curse she'd left embedded in the Morrison blood. The truth that any hunter who killed a Morrison woman would die screaming within 3 days, their own blood turning to poison. "It's a trap," Clara whispered. "It was always a trap. Kill us, and you kill yourselves." The woman collapsed unconscious. Clara staggered backward, and Lucian caught her, his arms solid and cold around her trembling body. "How did you know that would work?" he asked softly. "I didn't. But Elizabeth did." Clara looked up at him, seeing her reflection in those golden eyes. "She's in here. Part of her. Maybe all of her. And she's been protecting us even from beyond death." Lucian's expression was unreadable. "The curse is real?" "I think so. I felt it when I touched her. Felt Elizabeth weaving it centuries ago, embedding it in our blood like a failsafe." Clara pulled away, suddenly aware of how close they were. "We're poison to anyone who kills us. Then the Covenant will leave you alone." "Will they?" "They will if they value their lives." Lucian looked toward the broken doors where dawn was beginning to paint the sky pink and gold. And if they don't, well, they've seen what I can do when you give me permission. Clara turned to find Noah emerging from behind the altar, his eyes wide but no longer terrified. He walked straight to Lucien and took his hand. Your eyes aren't red anymore, Noah said. No, Lucien crouched down, studying the boy. They're gold now, like yours will be when you learn to control your gift. Will you teach me? Lucien glanced at Clara, and she saw the question in his eyes. She thought about her small house, her cafe job, the normal life she'd been clinging to. That life was gone, shattered like the church doors. But maybe there was something better waiting. Yes, Clara said quietly. He'll teach you. He'll teach both of us. The sun crested the horizon, and light flooded through the stained glass windows, red and blue and gold, painting the three of them in impossible colors. Lucien didn't burn, didn't flee. He stood in the sunlight, his hand in Noah's, his eyes on Clara. The curse is broken, he said, wonder in his voice. When you renewed the pact, when our blood mixed, the sunlight doesn't hurt anymore. Elizabeth's final gift, Clara whispered, understanding blooming. She didn't just bind you to protect us. She gave you a way to be free. Lucien knelt before her, exactly as he had in her dreams, and pressed his forehead to her bleeding palm. The seal is renewed. I am yours to protect, not by curse, but by choice. Not by mistake, but by fate. Clara touched his hair, feeling the impossible softness of it. And I choose to keep you. Noah yawned, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Can we go home now? Clara laughed, actually laughed, the sound strange and bright in the ruined church. Yeah, baby. We can go home. But as they walked out into the sunrise, Clara knew home was different now. It wasn't just a house in Millbrook. It was this, her son's hand in hers, a vampire walking beside them in daylight for the first time in 2 centuries, and a pact renewed not by blood magic, but by something stronger. Trust.
Choice.
Family. The Morrison line would continue, guarded by shadows and sunlight both. And Clara, carrying Elizabeth's memories, Elizabeth's power, Elizabeth's love, would make sure that this time, the story had a different ending. Not tragedy, but hope. Not death, but life. Not alone, but together. The three of them disappeared into the morning light, leaving the church and its sleeping hunters behind. Somewhere in the distance, birds began to sing. And for the first time in 200 years, Lucien Vale smiled at the dawn.